Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here on a cold, snowy February evening. We'll try to get you out of here just as quickly as possible. We conduct our business. First order of business will be the approval of the minutes for January 12th, 2016 regular council meeting and for January 17th, 18th, and 19th, 2016 annual council retreat.
Make a motion to approve both as presented on our original draft.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Being none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carries. This time I'd like to recognize Chief Tony Jones for
Thank you, Mayor.
oath of office.
Mayor, board, this is Officer Cameron Taylor, and, oh yes, okay. I was trying to stay closer to the door so I could escape. But Cameron is gonna be filling our vacant spot that we've got. He was born here, raised here, graduated high school in 2012. So he should not be old enough to be a police officer, but somehow he is. And I didn't tell him this, but when I started, I was actually taller than him, weighed less, and had more hair. So it's a great career. But anyway, he'll be with us. He out of our applicants for this particular position, he was definitely the best candidate. We were thrilled to have him. And he went to basic law enforcement training at Wilkes Community College, and he's the first officer to begin our new training program that we have just instituted. A little more in depth than what we had before, last a little longer. So we certainly have high hopes for him. He's a fine young man.
Thank you. Fantastic. Yeah. What's his name, Taylor?
I'd like to say welcome you. Yes, sir.
Welcome
Glad to
aboard,
have you
Cameron.
aboard.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Gotta get up, we can't reach over. We're in the lunch break. Hey, how are you? Glad you're here.
Cameron, please recognize these faces. So,
Yeah. So you got a special place for us?
Cameron, please recognize these faces so late at night you can take us home instead of taking us to jail. Okay? Thank you. Okay. Kip Turner. Looks a lot like Kevin Rothrock tonight.
Kip went home.
It's cold.
Good for Kip.
Let's swear him in, see if he can.
Adopting his mannerisms, I guess. He's very easy going. This is not what I need. This is the agenda, nothing on it. This is 321 update for everyone. The plan to split the traffic to the outside lanes of 321 between Samaritan's Purse and South Main has been delayed due to the current forecasted weather conditions. The placement of pavement markings for the traffic shift began last week, but due to the lack of suitable weather and temperatures, this operation was suspended. For the shift to take place, we need several consecutive days of suitable weather for the completion of the pavement markings and striping and placement of the channelization barrier, which would separate the north and southbound traffic at specified planned locations. Based on this forecast, this shift is not anticipated to take place within the next 7 days. An update on the shift split will be provided as the weather forecast allows. As a reminder, once the first traffic split is installed, traffic between Samaritan's Purse and South Main will be in a traffic pattern similar to the final pattern that left turn movements in and out of businesses will be prohibited except for locations allowed in the plans as provided by openings in the newly constructed median. Right turn movements in and out of driveways will continue to be permitted. Motorists will need to use the designated median openings at intersections to make U-turns in the northbound and southbound directions accordingly. weather allows, the contractor will also continue to place asphalt and curb and gutter between Samaritan's Purse and Food Line to extend the traffic split to the north in the future. This second phase of the traffic split will eventually place traffic in the outside lanes in both directions to the Tanger Possum Hollow intersection, allowing for the continuation of the utility duct bank to this intersection. Kip Turner.
Thank you.
There are two, I guess they're manhole covers or something on the southbound, lane that are sunken by a couple of inches. I don't know if anybody else has driven them.
I know, yes.
Yeah, they plan to get those, I just have too many tires.
I think we met with DOT, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was last week, and they mentioned that some of the rings had fallen, underneath the pavement, so, and I'll ask Kip about that and pass that on about when that would be rectified.
We may want to put it in Ripley's, believe it or not, there was a crew working there today.
On the wall.
Okay. Next thing is consent agenda. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. We have 7 items on your consent agenda for this evening, and I'll summarize each of them. First is a budget ordinance amendment to account for an appropriation of $1,500 to match a $6,000 grant that was secured by the Blue Ridge Conservancy through the North Carolina State Parks and Recreation Division for maintenance along the Glen Burnie Trail. One of the exciting things about this particular grant and its match from the town of $1,500, the Blue Ridge Conservancy has decided to spearhead a private fundraising campaign along with Cobb Milner associated with Bistro Roca due to their adjacency to the trail to try to raise a matching $7,500 so that there will be $15,000 to go towards these trail improvements once all is said and done. Our second item is a general obligation bond referendum resolution. This is one of the technical requirements associated with our continuing to pursue borrowing the first phase of our general obligation public improvement bonds. This totals $4,635,000. It'll be for a series 2016. And so this is a mix of transportation, park and recreation, water and sewer project money associated with the capital appropriations that council made in the current year's budget. We have one item for the surplus equipment resolution. We have a 2010 Ford Crown Victoria in poor condition that's been identified for surplus. We have an official notification of the Planning Board recommendation regarding the Holiday Inn Express request to have a write-in only access to the side or rear of the property from Ransom Street. The Planning Board recommended denial of this particular request and that the applicant continue to pursue other alternatives. This particular agenda item is for official notification only, and it basically starts the clock of having 45 days in which the applicant must decide to abandon the request or move forward and come to council. And looking at our meeting calendar, that will mean that either it will be on the March 8th council agenda or the request will fail for lack of action on the applicant's part. Item 5 is approval of Saturday, May 21st, 2016 for the Hunters Heroes Memorial Race. Staff is working with that organization. The 10-mile portion will end up in Memorial Park, and there'll be activities there for those and their families who participated in the race. Our 6th item is a report of our 2015 taxes that are uncollected to date. Our total billing for the fiscal year 2015-2016 totaled $3,612,786.38. And through February 2nd, we've collected 94.9% of that total billing. North Carolina general statutes stipulate this official reporting to council. We'll make our final billing notice to all of those who have not yet paid. They'll have 30 days to pay, and then those remaining unpaid at that point in time will be publicized in the newspaper according to state statute. Our final item on the consent agenda is a grant agreement for a stormwater mapping project the High Country Council of Governments was successful in securing a grant from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality on behalf of the town of Blowing Rock in association with the town of Banner Elk. They'll be mapping our stormwater system, much like they have already done for our sewer system and are in the process of doing for our water system. The matching requirement associated with this is $2,494, and because the billing process, most of the work will not be done until fiscal year 2016-17, our recommendation is to include the match of $2,494 in the upcoming budget process. So Mayor and Council, that concludes the summary of the consent agenda items.
Just for my own information, Scott, do we have mapping of all of our water and sewer lines in the town now?
We have completed the sewer portion of the mapping project. We're in the process of working on the water line aspect of that, and then this will be for the stormwater aspect of
Okay,
the
so
system.
when this, are you saying that, maybe you're not, should I assume then that when this is finished, that we'll have all three of those maps done,
Yes,
complete for the town?
yes.
Great.
We'll be adding them to the town application that we'll be putting on the website and have available. And at an upcoming meeting, we're gonna have Jessica Brannick, who did a great job designing that application, kind of give a demonstration so that folks will see how it works and be able to take advantage of that.
Okay, you've heard the consent agenda. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion that we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? None, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. Consent agenda is approved. We have no public hearings this evening, so we'll move into the discussion agenda. The next item is board appointments. And this year, we were fortunate enough to receive a larger than normal number of folks interested in serving on town boards and commissions. Thank you to everyone who applied. We appreciate it very much. Unfortunately, we only have so many openings available. The following appointments were discussed during Town Council's 2016 retreat and are now before council for appointment confirmation. Each of the people who have been selected have been contacted and are willing and able to serve. Planning Board appointments, Jeannie Starnes, reappointed for a 3-year term. Mike Page, appointed to a 3-year term. George Ellis, appointed to the unexpired 2-year term of Councilmember Steele. Board of Adjustment appointments, Suzanne Wilson, reappointed to a 3-year term. Tom Dixon, appointed to a 3-year term. Ed Springs, alternate. Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. Eli Springs, appointed to a 3-year term. ABC Board, Bob Miller, reappointed to a 3-year term. Tourism Development Authority, Dean Bullis, reappointed to a 3-year term and further designated as chair. Rob Dyer, reappointed to a 3-year term. Lori Mulhern, appointed to a 3-year term. Blowing Rock Appearance Advisory Commission, better known as BRAC. Bo Henderson, reappointed to a 3-year term. Jennifer Chick, reappointed to a 3-year term. These terms will become effective with the respective meeting of each board in March 2016. These appointments are presented for council approval at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. Motion stands as approved. Next item is Ice House process to consider request for proposals. Kevin?
Okay, good evening, council, mayor. On the direction of council, staff's prepared a request for proposals to lease the historic ice house located at 140 Maple Street. The ice house has been vacant for several years, with the exception of serving as a staging office for the Blowing Rock Chamber of Commerce Blue Ridge Wine Festival activities. The RFP will seek to identify potential tenants that desire to utilize the interior space for office or retail purposes that will be most compatible with the downtown area. The draft RFP would require a successful bidder to complete a scope of work for improvements to the building, which also includes remove paint and tar and stains from the exterior of the building. You can see some of that here. Replace the rotten trim and on the edge of the building, paint that, prime and paint all that. Remove the vines. There were some old vines that were on this building. Replace the roof shingles with a metal roof that, based on the slope, a metal roof certainly served us a whole lot better. Replace the front door, replace the hardware on the front door, add a concrete end to this part of the sidewalk to eliminate that big step up and just kind of blend it into the asphalt. Bury all the utilities and actually come in from a service pole that's just out of the shot of this picture behind the building, and to remove the weatherhead and have all that come underground. We would have them replace the top slab of this rear porch. Inside, there's some areas of mold and you can see here where the moisture has damaged some of the trim work, so it would replace all the trim on the interior, prime and paint the entire interior, prime and paint the floor, replace the lighting fixtures. Based on this process, there's a schedule that's outlined by the North Carolina General Statutes, and there are specific requirements for the lease of town property when that contract period would exceed 12 months. So as such, the following schedule is recommended for the process of sending RFPs, receiving bids, establishing a lease rate, advertising a 30-day public notice, and selecting a potential tenant. So if tonight you approve the draft RFP, we would then tomorrow place that on the town website. Next week, on the 18th, we would advertise that RFP in the Blowing Rocket. Our proposed deadline would be 2 o'clock on February 29th. We'd receive all the proposals, evaluate those proposals, provide those for your meeting on March 8th for you to decide on lease terms. After the March 8th meeting, we would advertise a public notice in the Rocket, and then we'd come back after we meet that 30-day deadline, 30-day public notice period. We would then have an opportunity at your next council meeting in April to authorize a lease agreement with the winning bidder at your council meeting. The attached RFP draft was provided in your packet. It also includes some background of the recent use of the ice house, the scope of work, proposal guidelines, and the evaluation criteria. So at this time, I'd be glad to answer any questions on the process and what. I will note we will send it out to 3 potential parties that were interested in it over the last couple of years, and let them know of this process that's available to them, and then also entertain anything else that comes in from the public. Be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, Kevin, as I understand it, this RFP would say that anybody who'd be interested in this building would respond to a 1-year lease? Is that correct?
Between 1 year and 3 years, could somewhere in at least a year. It could be as long as 3 with options for.
And then what we've also put in there is 14 items that they've got to do to the building itself.
That's right.
I would think if they're gonna lease it, why wouldn't they say, this is your building, you fix it, I'll make any kind of changes I want on the interior, but on the exterior, that's up to you. Why wouldn't somebody leasing that building want to tell you to do that?
Well, that's one way. That could be an option. The other is if we want someone to spend money on this building to
Well,
kind of
I could
improve
understand if it was for a longer term lease, I really could, I guess. But for a 1 to 3 year lease, I don't think we're gonna get too many people saying, let me see if I get this right. I can lease this building up to 3 years, but I gotta do all this to their building. For them. Now, I guess it would all depend upon the lease rate, wouldn't it?
It could be to someone's advantage. Say, look, I'll be willing to do this work, to have an opportunity to be located in downtown Blue Water.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, I'm just asking the question. At
And it
first
could be
blush.
longer than 3 years.
Oh, it could be?
Yeah, it could be up to 10.
Oh,
But that would be for council to decide the length of the lease.
okay. All right, that's all I wanna know.
Any other questions for Kevin? What's your pleasure?
Make a motion, we accept the RFP for the ice house to go out.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carries. Thank you, Kevin. Bid awards for streetscape capital improvement project on Main Street. Doug?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The Town Council approved making the Main Street phases 5 and 6 part of the 2016 general obligation bond package. This is an overview of the streetscape and the area that includes, and basically goes from Morris Street along the east side of Main Street to US 221, with the exception of the area across the street in front of First Citizens Bank, and then comes on the west side of Main Street from Mellow Mushroom to Park Avenue, and then the section in front of Memorial Park. The streetscape will look much like the other phases of the streetscape have looked, where we'll have new concrete curb and gutter, cobblestone pavers, and new sidewalk. The drainage in this area is all working and in good order, so there's no drainage improvements as part of this phase of the project. We've broken the project down into a number of sections, and in our staging plan for the contractor, we have those set up so that work is done in a business-by-business basis to keep access to businesses during construction. There's a number of details to those plans. This is a closer view of the section on the north end near US 221 to Park Avenue. And then the section in front of Memorial Park and along Sunset. And then a closer view of the south end of the project work area. What we did was we worked with the town staff to meet with all the affected businesses along the project. We set those up over a series of 2 days where we had 3 to 5 businesses come in at one time, and we reviewed the whole project with them. That's where these maps and the sections that you saw on that one map, it's where they came from, is we broke those down into different sections so we could have the property owners here at the same time, notify them of what we're doing, how we're gonna do it, and see where we could work together for access and things like that to minimize the impact of their businesses, and see when their most sensitive times were, so that when we put together the bid documents, we had all that information in there. The budget for Phase 5, when we did the capital planning back in 2014, was $383,700 for 5. Phase 6 was $281,940 for a total budget for these projects of $665,640. Our bids, we received 3 bids. It was competitively bid. We received bids on February 2nd, and of the 3 bids, Green Construction Company of Boone was the apparent low bidder. We did also include bids for the Laurel Lane sidewalk replacement with that, thinking that similar work would give us an economy of scale of adding that to this project. When we reviewed the bids, those weren't favorable bids for that piece of work, so we're recommending not awarding that section now. We are recommending awarding to Green Construction. phases 5 and 6. They performed previous phases successfully on, for the town on Main Street. The budget breaks down to $80,000 for design and construction phase services, $382,922.77 for the bid award amount, a 10% contingency that is $38,293, and then of that total budget that was set aside for streetscape, that would now be unallocated of $164,424.23 to get back to that 665 total. If there's any questions, I can answer those. We feel good about the bids, the total. Went through the line items, went through the bid with Green Construction. If you look at the itemized bid tab that's in your packet, there's a number of highlights in there. And the way they did their math, they backed into unit prices and then they extended them back out a different way. They didn't extend them back out as the units, so that's why you saw those highlighted, because the totals came up a few cents here and there off. The item that's highlighted where we negotiated, their unit price looked really high compared to the actual work element, and what they did was they calculated a total for that work item. So that total was $21,000 and something for the total work. Well, originally we had 3 of those tree grates in, and we changed it to 7. So they divided the total by 3 and had a really high unit price. So we talked to them about that, and when we corrected, because the contract documents are set up to use the unit bid price, not the extension. So the contract says you take the quantities and the unit bid price to get the correct extension. Well, that made it $30,000 higher than it needed to be. So we negotiated that back out and got it to the number that they intended it to be. And that's how we came up with the $382,000.
What did you expect the bid to be on Laurel Lane, since you said it was too high?
Our estimate was $72,000 for construction, and that did not include replacing that crosswalk. When I talked to them about that, because all 3 bids, the 3 bids varied, or one of the bids varied a lot on Main Street. The two low bids were reasonably close. All 3 bids were close for Laurel Lane. When I talked to them about that particular item, we had a number of conditions that they had to work under to do Main Street, because we want to minimize the impact of businesses and we want to get it done in a tight time window. On Laurel Lane, I think they thought the same type of restrictions, and that increased the cost of doing Laurel Lane. Laurel Lane is much simpler than doing Main Street, because all we're going to do is take out that sidewalk, cut the edge of pavement, pour curb and gutter and sidewalk. It's pretty simple. So we're going to go back out and solicit prices, change some of those general conditions, because we don't have to do it in small pieces like we're going to do Main Street. Because essentially there's only 2 driveways for parking lots on that section of street. So we can change some of those things, I think, and reduce that cost. If you'll notice their mobilization item at the top and their other work item at the bottom, where they include their staging, their traffic control, and other things, are pretty high for that amount of work.
One thing that stood out, and a little curious, is, and you partially answered it a second ago, like item 2 and 3 on the bid tabulation, Tri-County, especially item 2, $300,000 more than the other 2 bidders. Were they bidding on the same thing there? That's
They all
a
have the same
huge
quantities.
difference.
That they were at the meeting where we described the work, because we had a pre-bid meeting to describe the work. I look at those 3 numbers, and obviously they didn't put the same amount of work in their numbers there.
They didn't want the job.
Do I think $366,000 to do the demolition is right? No, that's really high. Do I think you can do all the demolition for, Green's bid of $5,900? No, I don't think you can do it for that either. So they've got that money is somewhere else in these items. Their total looks good. I can't tell you why those items vary that much, but if you look at, if you look at Tri-County's price, they're over twice what Green was
Right.
for the whole work.
That was the reason I was curious on those two items there, you know, it seemed like they were looking at two different things than what the other two bidders were.
So, you know, the good thing is, Green Construction, they've done several projects for the town, one of them, specifically being the Main Street streetscape, so they're aware of what it takes to get the project done.
They also did the Legion.
They did one of the wastewater plant projects that we did, so they've done several projects, so that, you know.
We're becoming a national account for them.
No, ASU did that.
Let me ask you this, is your 10% contingency fee, is that fairly in line with what we've had for the other projects of this, the streetscape?
This is much larger than most of the projects. We've done,
As a percentage.
percentage-wise, I don't know that, when we did the other ones, I don't know that we set up a contingency item.
Well, did we
In
go
our budget.
over?
The only one that I think we went over on was the first one, because we added some conduits in that wasn't originally in the project. The other ones were typically under.
Is there anything, so we haven't used the contingency fee then?
And I don't expect that we're gonna use that much
But you,
contingency.
okay,
I mean, we're under, if we weren't under budget by so far, I would have said 5% contingency. But 5% is not a whole lot. And, you know, we're not gonna use that without, you know,
just, yeah. Okay,
It's your pleasure.
Doug, one more.
Please.
This plan does call for the replacement of the sidewalk from Memorial Park, doesn't it?
yes,
Okay.
I know we talked about that. That was one of the things we changed. All of the sidewalks in that section will be replaced.
Okay.
Any other questions? It's your pleasure.
Move we accept it.
Second.
Motion and a second.
For the, leaving out the Laurel Lane,
Yeah.
It is leaving out the wall, as I understand it.
Yeah. According to this, he's gonna rebid that. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those vote no. Motion carries. Thank you, Doug. I think that concludes our regular agenda, Sue. Sharon, do we have any speakers from the floor?
I don't think so.
Okay, Albert has something to add.
Dizzy Dean pitched baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he made a famous statement, bragging ain't bragging if you can prove it. The town won two pretty good honors today at the Chamber's annual meeting, and I'd like for the mayor to bring us all up to date on what the town won.
Let's see, that's several hours ago, Albert. Let's see, one of them was for the lighting in the park, and the other was for the renovation of the American Legion building. So, kudos to Scott and his team for making that happen. I think you've done a great job, Scott.
and the community, especially American Legion,
Yes,
because they
American Legion's
donated.
community stepped up, and we're so appreciative, but I think we all have
Couldn't have
something
done it without.
we're very proud of.
I
It's a
think
real asset.
also I'd pass along to you, during that biggest snowstorm that we'd had, I got a lot of feedback from, residents here in town bragging on how well the town crew it did, and also on the police department, all the people they pulled out Friday night, they stayed busy themselves. They pulled out more people than the wrecker services did here in town, so, a big thank you to both those divisions of our town, they made us look good that night.
And also,
Was that,
Mike Wilcox also did a lot of, we had an event that weekend with the chamber. They went and moved a lot of extra stuff around to make room for that event, to make sure parking lots were cleared. American Legion, big pile of snow, they cleaned that up for us, so thanks to them.
Anything else? Y'all have a great evening.
Is that sort of like, do I hear a motion that we be dismissed?
You can take it any way you want to, I'm going home.